Well, here's what it looked like across our area of Texas today. A lot of flattened, weak cumulonimbus and cumulus towers, and a lot of mid-level moisture debris from these storms. Not very well organized, but you can see kind of a hazy, flat base here. We didn't get any rain, so I had to water the garden again. Not a very efficient rainmaker here, these storms, but I'll show you the big picture of what's going on here. Here again, we're using the SPC mesoscale analysis. And let me see if my tool is working. Yeah, it is. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is look at the big picture here. And we can start out looking at the winds. So let me draw the streamlines on here. So you can see over Louisiana and Mississippi, there's southerly flow. Same thing right on the Texas Gulf Coast. But as you get further inland around Kansas and Oklahoma, we have northerly flow here. I don't know if you were tuning in yesterday, but you probably saw that front that we had work southward through Oklahoma and Texas. This is the remains of that old front. So this is a 1 to 2 day old pattern. And then as you go further west into the higher terrain, that recurves to southerly flow again, as we start getting on the backside of that high pressure area. So let me complete this streamline. Looks like we have some onshore flow here, southerly flow. Okay. Then in between that, we've got this boundary. Runs something like that. But this entire zone, like everything in here, this is a big convergence zone. So when we have this broad, weakly defined convergence in the summertime, we tend to get a lot of unorganized rain and showers. We used to see a similar pattern like this when I forecasted in Korea that was called the Changma, or the Asian monsoon. And that would affect us in July and early August. It was a very similar pattern to this, but it was more of a backdoor pattern from the northeast, from the Sea of Okhotsk. So we would get that and get this dreary, showery pattern, and that's what we have going on here in Texas. Same thing. And the moisture is a little bit on the higher side. We have 72-degree dew points, 73. Temperatures on the cool side. So we can put it together with the soundings. Pull up our soundings here. Here's the one for Fort Worth, and this is going to be a little bit north of the boundary on the dry side, and you can kind of see that there's kind of this inverted V appearance here from on the Fort Worth sounding, and this is from this evening. But you can see that the lapse rates they're not very steep, but they're kind of leaning over to the left. So if we have any source of humid air and we were able to push that through, we would almost be on the right side of the diagram. Not completely there, but you can see it's kind of close. Now if we went further south, I wish we had a sounding for Houston or Victoria or Lufkin or something like that. There's a big hole there, and it's been there for like 22 years. We can use Corpus, but they're pretty far south. So this is going to be south of the boundary. You can see there's some moist layers in here, and that's perfect for elevated storms. Here's another layer. In fact, this whole layer from 950 to 900. If we lift that, we get some definite positive area right there. So that's kind of what we got going on. Lake Charles is one other sounding we can check out. Here there's not a whole lot of low-level moisture. It looks like, let me see here, 73. They've probably got some recirculated air there at Lake Charles, whereas at Corpus Christi it's coming more out of the Gulf, so that's probably what's happening there. But still, if we were able to squeeze out some 70 to 71 degree dew points with some decent depth, we would get a little bit of a positive area in here. Not much in the way of the cap, and you can see that there's not much of a cap all the way up there. This is a very uncapped air mass. Let me go all the way to Del Rio and see what that shows. So yeah, there's no cap at all. And when you have no cap, you tend to get a lot of storms developing early in the afternoon, and that's definitely been the case today. So the big picture across the U.S., we've just got a few flash flood warnings across the I-10 area of Texas and up in the central Mississippi Valley. We've got this thing here, which is probably a severe, I'm trying to remember the codes, I think that's probably going to be a severe weather watch there in central and western South Dakota. Looks like heat advisories back across Nevada, and this here over North Carolina, I'm not too sure. I would have to look at the scheme. Orange, that's going to be heat advisory, so not much relief there along the central Atlantic coast. We can take a look briefly at that stuff up in the Dakotas. I'm going to pull up a analysis for that area. I'm going to use the Pierre window here. And you can see the thunderstorms are definitely in progress there at Rapid City. See that gust out of the northwest up to 42 knots. There's even these northeast gusts here at Phillipsburg. Pierre's getting some storms, so there's probably a little bit of a MCS or an organized cluster, maybe some more stuff in southeastern Montana. And what's the reason for that? Well, I haven't looked at this area at all, but I can see that there's high pressure across the Iowa area. We're pushing some low 60s and upper 50s dew points up here through this corridor. If I look at isodrosotherms, let me pull that up here. I'm going to draw out the 50 isodrosotherm. And then I'm going to add a 60. That kind of backs up through here. Then I'm going to draw a 55. So you can see that the nose of this moisture, where it gets up to the highest terrain, that's through this area here. So that's corresponding to these thunderstorms here that we have here. There's probably a little bit of instability aloft helping to get these going, but that's something we use during chase weather. Is we follow the moisture or the highest theta E's northwestward towards the higher terrain. That's kind of a key component of upslope flow. So we're probably getting a little bit of that there in the Dakotas, and then if you get out to Wyoming, you can see the dew points are a lot lower, a lot of 30s and 20s, and that's not supportive of thunderstorms at all. So what do we have up for the next upcoming few days? Let's see, I pulled up the NAM. The NAM is basically the WRF, which is run by NOAA. So we start out at 0Z, and you can see this is at 500 millibars, heights and vorticity. You can see there's a little bit of a trough here. Let me pick a different color. There we go. Maybe a closed low over Amarillo. So why do we have that troughing here? That goes back to the surface chart. It's because we got cool air over the high plains here. So the air is a lot denser, and we end up with heights aloft being a lot lower. So that's kind of a reflection of this cool weather we have in this region. We go back to the model data. In fact, I'm just going to go to the GFS here. Run that back. So here's the picture we have for tonight. The 500 millibar low over the Texas Panhandle stacks backwards a little bit to a 250 millibar trough over eastern New Mexico. So it stacks back toward the cooler air like that. And we've got a little bit of a polar front jet working down into Texas and then back up towards the Great Lakes area. It looks like we got kind of a split flow pattern going on here. I'm sure that trough is going to push on off to the west or to the east, which it does. But we've still got this continued strong flow. We have another jet max developing across California on Wednesday, and the flow strengthens across Texas, so we're going to have continued chances for rain through most of this week, especially getting towards the end of this week. Mostly north of I-20, but possibly some down to the hill country, depending on what the surface pattern is like. Continued strong flow through Saturday the 20th, and it really picks up here to 60 knots up in Oklahoma and Kansas, so probably a good chance of some organized severe storms around I-40 and up to Kansas as possible. That's going to be on Sunday. And then as we get into next week, or the following week, it's like we got high pressure building into Texas. So we're going into the 23rd, 24th. It looks like the hot weather will be back, unfortunately. And then looking into the crystal ball, looks pretty meridional here in the Pacific, so we may have a chance of maybe some more interesting weather here towards the end of this month. We'll see how that pans out. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you tomorrow night.